Everybody come on, grab a seat. Our speaker will start soon. Okay, Andrew, take it away when you're ready.
Yeah. Okay, welcome back. I hope you got your shot of caffeine and can stay awake for the next last portion of this talk. Collars. So about 8 to 10 weeks out, we'll start looking at our collars and remarking them, because you won't believe how much the collars will change just by the way the greens mowers mow the perimeter. So they might get widened up, they might get narrow in some areas. So we like to go back and remark all of our collars so we get the same width all the way across. And we like to have our collars about 80 centimeters in width throughout the year. So marking collars is another thing that we do leading up to the tournament. Okay, for our nutrient management, it goes a lot along the lines of what Bill was talking about this morning, and it's total coincidence. We didn't plan this, but basically we're adjusting our nitrogen based on the growth rate that we want to get. And those variables are all over the place. They could include traffic, the actual turf conditions, if weather, and also if you got a tournament coming up. So that's pretty much our base for our nutrient management, and then we'll go from there. Our nutrient sources are primarily urea 4600, ammonium sulfate 2100, and potassium sulfate 0050. In the 5 years that I've been at KEA, I haven't deliberately applied any phosphorus or calcium. I did apply some phosphorus because it was in a granular that I applied a couple of years ago, but pretty much our soils have adequate amount of those nutrients, so we just go off these, basically these two main nutrients. And now for the micronutrients, we do apply a little micronutrient package that looks about like this here. Nothing special, just to get some micronutrients into the grass, and maybe every 2 or 3 weeks I will apply this along with some. If I don't apply the micronutrients package, then I'll put just a shot of iron in the tank with my nitrogen and potassium. So we go by the MLSN guidelines. You either got those or your conventional guidelines. So about the phosphorus and calcium and the other nutrients, we soil test every year in the spring, just like Bill advised us to do, and we go from there. And KEA is a 50-year-old golf course, so it's got a lot of a buildup of nutrients. So we've found that we're good within these guidelines, and I've been doing these guidelines for 5 years now and haven't had any problems whatsoever. Actually, I would say the golf green conditions have improved since I've been there. And I'm not going to say it's because of being on MLSN, but we just haven't had any issues. For more on that, you can contact the Asian Turfgrass Center, and they have lots of information. So our green spraying, leading up to the tournament, we start backing off the end 2 or 3 weeks. I'm getting more onto like 3 weeks, maybe even 4 in the future. You always want to push it as far as you can. So about 2 or 3 weeks out, we just cut off the nitrogen. For color, we will start, well, we won't start, but we'll apply some iron as needed for color. I'm always using Primo Max. We have some strict regulations in Japan about how we use Primo Max, so I won't go into exactly what we do, but we're always applying the Primo Max, and we'll start increasing the rate as we get closer to our tournament to get the growth rate down to where we want it, which I'll go into later. Another thing is we're always applying a wetting agent every 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm not big on which wetting agent you use. There's, people say there's penetrates and what is it, maybe water, things that hold water in the soil or whatnot. I pretty much just go with the cheapest wetting agent I can find that's on the market, as long as it's not, some of the older variety, some of the older products might burn the turf, but you might want to look at some of the newer products that are safe for the turf that you can apply. But I think this is kind of very important because you don't want dry spots popping up during your tournament. So our last application of wetting agent will be about 2 weeks before the tournament, just so I know we got good coverage through the tournament. So if we have anything that kind of starts getting droughty, we'll be able to get some water down to the soil with no problem. As far as disease on our golf course during the summertime, this is really site specific. Some golf courses have fairy ring, some don't. My first year at KA, I didn't want to go out there and just start applying fairy ring fungicide just to be doing it if I didn't know I wasn't going to get it. So the first year, this is 2013, I believe this is the number 17 green, and wow, did we have a lot. So I knew next year I wanted to get on some kind of program to prevent this from happening. And to be honest with you, it looks bad like on TV or up close, but it's not really going to affect ball roll so much or the playability of the green. I think this is more of an aesthetic issue. So, you could spot treat or just go full range treatment. This is what I was more worried about. Like 4 weeks before the tournament, we started getting these mushrooms popping up overnight, and then you'd pick them off during the day, and then they'd start coming up around lunchtime, and you're like, oh my God, I cannot have these popping up during the tournament. So we got after it pretty hard getting these dealt with, so at least we didn't have any mushrooms popping up. But I knew after that first year that we were going to have this issue coming up late again the next year. So I've got on to where I apply about three times during the year for fairy ring, and I will apply the fungicide along with a wetting agent to get it down into the soil where the fairy ring is at. This is a soil-borne fungus, so you want to get it down into the soil. Another disease that we will have if we have long period of rainy weather, or if we got bad drainage in a green or whatnot, is curvularia. In Japan, we call this dog's footprint. It's actually really easy to control. Actually, I don't ever see it anymore because I kind of got an idea when it's going to pop. If I haven't applied a fungicide in, say, 3 weeks or so, and I see some rain in the forecast that's going to last for 3 or 4 days, I know I better go and apply something just to keep me from getting this this fungicide. So, if you stay on top of it, it's not really a disease that I don't think you're going to have a lot of trouble with, but if you're not careful, it can pop up, and I'm sure it'll pop up here in Thailand as well if you do have a long period of rain or cloud cover over a few days. Algae, obviously if you overwater, if you have a lot of rain, you're going to get some algae pop up. The first year at KA, it was really bizarre that we wouldn't have any algae, and then it would be a day rain, and this kind of thing would pop up, and the algae was like on top of the grass. It's something I'd never seen before. And one thing was I don't think we had the density that we do now, but the first thing is build up your density in the grass, and I think you can get away with this, but just be careful with your irrigation, and if you know you're going to get it, just be on top of it. And but in the past 2 or 3 years, I don't think I've had to apply anything for algae control, just because we've increased our density and are more careful with our irrigation practices and whatnot. Trinexpac ethyl. Obviously, this is Primo Max. This is our green here. I think this is during the tournament. Honestly, I don't think I could get the quality of grass without this. It's just a product that I think everybody should look at using. There's so many plant health benefits, but as far as controlling the growth of the grass, getting the density up in the grass, as well as the tightness, it makes the grass look totally different when you start getting on a program using this. And Bill's already touched on this a lot. I don't need to go any further, but we just start at a really low rate when we start off and then gradually increase, moving up to the tournament. If you go at a really high rate, the first time, you're probably going to see a little burn or the big Primo effect on the green, and it might scare you a little bit. So if you go really low rates and then gradually move up, I think you'll see some great benefits by using this product. One thing when you do use this, I wish I had a photo of it. I just kind of drew something out. So this is the green, this is the collar right here. So this is our sprayer going across the green, right? So the first year, I really didn't have anything in mind, so we would just, drive the sprayer off the green and turn it off after this boom right here got to the end of the green. Oops. So we're spraying the rough, right? And when you spray the rough at that amount of Primo on that frequent basis, you're going to start the rough's going to start stunting its growth pretty bad. And when you're trying to have a tournament, you don't want all these different growth height or different heights of rough next to the greens. So what I've asked lots of people what they're doing and whatnot, and Bill mentioned the GPS sprayers that'll cut, the nozzles will cut off. We don't have the money to go buy that kind of sprayer, or the management doesn't want to buy it for me. So what we do is we cut the sprayer boom off right here. Before it gets off the green into the rough, we'll cut it off. And then once this boom gets to about right here, we'll cut this boom off, and then once this boom gets to the end of the collar, we'll cut it off. So we don't want to spray into the rough. Now you're going to leave this little triangle, right? And you put marker in your tank so you know where you sprayed and where you haven't sprayed. So after I've sprayed, or we have sprayed the entire green, then we take the sprayer around the perimeter of the green here, and we raise the boom up just at an angle that you feel comfortable with, and we'll just go hit these areas just really lightly, just so we know we got something over this area without getting it into the rough. It's not a perfect solution, but it's what we found. It works pretty good, and it kind of masks anything that you've been spraying. So that's something that you might want to try if you got Primo Max in the tank. This is a little story about spraying greens that happened at the Ryder Cup in 2016. So I was fortunate enough to get there 2 weeks earlier and be able to work 2 weeks at the Ryder Cup. And Chris Trittabaugh, the superintendent at Hazeltine, I think he wanted his last application to the greens, he wanted it to happen like right before all the volunteers got there and things got really chaotic. And so I think the day before, we're kind of finishing up work. We're thinking we've had a good hard day. We're going to go home, have a beer, relax. And Chris comes up with these pink flags and said, grab some flags. And it's 5:30 in the afternoon. So I'm like, okay. So we start spraying greens at 5:30 in the afternoon because he knows the next day it's going to be windy and a big chance of rain. So he knows if he wants to get that last application in, it's going to have to be now. And he didn't want to put any dye in the tank because he didn't want any artificial colors on the greens. So no dye in the tank. And we're starting at 5:30. So we're out there with these markers, and we're just walking behind the sprayer and marking with the flags. And obviously when you start at 5:30, you move into the night, right? So they bring out the lights, and we're still marking. I think we finish around 10:30. And actually, you could see better at night because you could kind of see where you've sprayed and your footprints and whatnot. But it kind of learned a lesson with this. You can always sit around in your office and think, oh, the weather's going to be bad, we can't do this, we can't do that. But if you plan everything like you're supposed to and you make the effort, just get it done. And if you do it, in the end, everything's going to be so much better. And so it was kind of a big learning lesson for me, and it was, in the end, it was fun looking back on it, spraying at night, and the Ryder Cup's coming up. It's actually a little bit risky as well, but when you got to spray something, if you got the chance, go get it done. So another thing we found is from 2013, I thought every year, after the tournament was over, the week after the tournament, the conditions were better than the actual week of the tournament. And I kind of pretty much based that off of all of that mowing that we do during the tournament, all that rolling that we do during the tournament, everything leading up and cutting off the nitrogen, increasing the plant growth regulators, all of that leading up to the tournament always made the greens look actually better the following week. So I had in my mind I wanted to start everything. I wanted to start it earlier and earlier and earlier, as early as possible. But you only have so much staff to do that. So what we do is we start our afternoon greens mowing 4 weeks before the tournament starts. And we don't have a lot of staff, so we'll take a triplex mower and we'll mow 9 greens, and then we'll have our part-time guys come back in the afternoon and walk mow the other 9. And then we'll rotate that every day. And we found, and basically just by looking at the clipping amounts compared to the walkers and the triplex, will normally be about 0.4 millimeters lower than the walker setting with our triplex. So there's a little bit difference there, but just to make things work, that's how we rotate the mowers, getting it done a month earlier than the tournament. And then 2 weeks before the tournament, that's when we really start focusing on details and getting everything tuned in. So we'll use walkers on all greens 2 weeks before the tournament in the afternoon. So basically 4 weeks before the tournament starts, we're mowing twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And you won't believe the improvement of the quality of the greens after you start mowing that frequently. So we're always measuring our green clipping data, and our goal for the tournament week is 1 liter per 100 square meters every day. And so we're working gradually to reach that goal during the tournament week. So what we're doing is we're reducing the N, we're increasing our plant growth regulator, and the increased mowing frequency. And all of that together, you won't believe what you can do to reducing the clippings. So now we'll get briefly into our tee and fairway maintenance. We don't get too crazy with the maintenance in our tees and fairways, but I can tell you right now the players like firm surfaces not only on the greens, but the tees and fairways as well. So you do want to have firm surfaces throughout the golf course. For our tees, about 6 weeks before the tournament, we'll go out there and do a pretty good verticut on them. And as deep as you go is really dependent on what kind of conditions you have at that time. But we'll go pretty aggressive 6 weeks before, and then do a really good heavy top dressing. And that way, when the tournament comes, they're nice and firm. You don't have like the verticut look to it. You don't have top dress sand still on the green, tees. So I think 6 weeks out is definitely a pretty good thing to think about. For the fairways, so about 10 weeks before, now we don't close. We don't close during the year for these big cultural practices. So we have to do all of this work while play is going on. So it takes us about, I would say, 2 weeks to get all the fairways airified, verticut, and top dressed. So we'll go out and do like 2 holes in the morning, maybe a hole in the afternoon, and we do that every day. And about 2 weeks we're finished. So we like to start about 10 weeks out because you never know what the weather's going to do. You might rain for 3 or 4 days and you can't do anything. Then the weekend comes, you can't airify then. So start a little bit early. So what we'll do is we will take the aerator across at 15 millimeter cores. Then we take the verticut over those cores, and so we're verticutting and crushing up those cores at the same time. And then that helps with the sweeper picking up all those that debris that you've brought up to the surface. And then if it's still a little bit chunky, we'll take a mat over it and try to break it up a little bit more. But that's basically our cultural practice in our fairway, and we pretty much do this every year just because if you don't do it every year and you get behind, it can get out of control. So the greens they're small areas, so if you really need to do something, you can get on them pretty quick. But as fairways are concerned, we pretty much stay on this every year, and for the most part, we have pretty good firm fairways. And then here's the top dressing. We put a pretty good top dressing sand out on the fairways. Work that in with the drag. For our fairway fertilizer, now we only have such a short growing season, so I'm not going to go into how many times we fertilize or whatnot. But for the tournament, we fertilize with an 18-2-4 granular. I think it's methylene urea type fertilizer. So you get a little slow release action with that, and you don't want to fertilize. I don't want to fertilize too close to the tournament because you can get some overlap, or maybe you get some skips or whatnot. So you want to give yourself time to correct for those skips or overlaps. So if you do have those, you can maybe go out with a sprayer and kind of hit those just so it looks a little bit better for TV or whatnot. But normally we go about 10 weeks out with the granular fertilizer. And then for our plant growth regulators on our fairways, I don't like to go any more than 3 weeks. I like 3 weeks to be my cutoff for the plant growth regulator because I think Bill touched on this too. If you go the same rate as the greens, it really affects the longer mowed grass than it does the greens. So you can get some off coloring. And you can see here, we got Bermuda grass here, and this is zoysia. So it affects both of those turf grasses differently. So I like to be 3 weeks out. So by the time the tournament comes, all that discoloration kind of evens out. Our mowing practices on our fairways, I don't really like stripes too much. So what we do is we alternate half and half throughout the year. And not only do I not like stripes, but it's really time and fuel efficient. And alternating, so say this time we went this way and came back that way. The next time we go out, we'll do it counterclockwise. And this kind of keeps the grass upright. You don't develop any grain issues in the fairways. And so that's why we like to do that, as well as, when you're going off into the rough and turning and coming back and doing your striping and whatnot, sometimes the mowers might damage the rough, and it's just time consuming. So this is what we do during the season, and during the tournament it's a little bit different. But and we don't use buckets on our fairway mowers. We just release the clippings, and then in the morning, if we're cutting and there's a lot of dew, we'll just take a drag mat behind it and kind of break everything up. There's a lot of nutrients in those clippings. It's time consuming to harvest all those clippings, so we just let it go and take a drag mat over if necessary. Rough mowing. Leading up to the tournament, normal in the season, we cut however we want to cut just to get the grass cut. But leading up to the tournament, I like the inside closest to the fairway. I like to cut from the green to the tee. That's just if I'm going to get the grass growing in a certain direction, I want the players to be hitting into it and not with it. I don't want the grass laying over. Whoa. I don't want the grass laying over and the players getting a nice lie and being able to get a clean shot if they're hitting the rough. And we gradually increase our height. We don't just let it grow up and then cut it. So our normal cutting height during the season might be 45 millimeters. So we'll go in 10 millimeter increments every week or so and just start gradually raising the height. And I think you get better consistency throughout the rough as well as the better density than just letting it grow up and cutting it off. So you can see here where the fairway mower is coming back this direction and going nearest to the fairway towards the other way around, coming back this way towards the tee, nearest the fairway. So you want the rough standing up straight up like this, an upright position, so the ball kind of sits down in there and makes it a little bit more difficult for the players. You don't want it looking over the ball. It kind of looks like this. This is Zoysia japonica again. And we have lots of Bermuda grass contamination. So you have a little mix of zoysia grass and Bermuda grass here. And I can tell you one thing, it's much harder to hit out of 80 millimeter Bermuda grass than it is 80 millimeter japonica. And the players, when they're going around doing their practice rounds, they know more than I do where that Bermuda grass is in the roughs, and they're definitely not going to want to go there. But so we have a mix of that in our roughs. So it makes for an interesting type lie. But looking at it from sideways, so basically in the rough, and I found out the firmer the greens get, if you just get a little bit of grass leaf in between the club and the ball, they're not going to be able to hold the green. So you don't really have to go crazy with the heights, I don't think, if your greens are nice and firm. But the last thing you want is for players that aren't hitting fairways to be hitting out of the roughs and sticking it near the pin every time. That'll make the players, it's really unfair basically for the players that are playing good that week. So you just want to have a little bit of a penalty for the players that do hit into the rough. So you start getting closer to the tournament time, equipment starts rolling in. We got our greens mowers here, fairway mowers over that way, and our triplexes here. Everything's starting to get busy. We got one mechanic, so we have our local distributors come in and provide us tremendous support. And I can tell you right now, your mechanic is probably the most underrated position on the golf course because you can work hard all year round, but if the mowers go out there and don't give you a good quality cut, it doesn't matter. It's not going to look good. So make sure your mechanic is well appreciated at your golf course. And here's some of our trim mowers and some more triplexes that we use. But that's basically it for our tournament. We don't go all out and try to make a big show out of it. It's fun to do that, but we try to be as efficient as possible. So you don't want your grass to look like this come tournament week. I'm sure you've all seen that. It happens. So leading up to the tournament, we make sure every single reel that we're going to use that week is ground and as sharp as it can possibly be. So all the mechanic and the support are in there grinding every single reel leading up to that week. And this is pretty much our equipment list here. These are provided by the dealers. And then, so the total reel units that they're having to grind and maintenance on a daily basis is 81 reel units. And you're putting your fairway units, and your triplexes, greens, everything together. And so that's what we're dealing with during our tournament week. So you start working on details leading up to the tournament, just pine straw areas. You start weeding those out, getting them looking nice. Our ladies do a tremendous job doing all that detail work. And then we get pine straw. I know in the U.S. they can bring in a big container of pine straw, and it looks great when they put it out. We can't buy it, so we accumulate it over a year. We put it in a container so it doesn't get wet, and then come tournament week, we go out there and add nice fresh pine straw. It looks really great, good contrast. And first we did it just to reduce our trim mowing around trees and whatnot. And if you don't have pine straw, maybe you can use wood chips or bark or something. But it not only gives a good contrast, but it helps out with the work efficiency. Obviously, you're going to do a lot of edging leading up to the tournament because you want everything looking nice and crisp. We kind of let this one go a little bit too long, but again, you don't want to, some of the work that if you do it too early, it's going to come tournament time, you're like, oh man, I need to do this again. So you kind of want to time all of this detail work. So you might have to let it go a little bit, but you know, that's just the way it is. So I like to time it maybe 2 weeks before the tournament, and then we go out there and start edging everything, get it nice and neat, so it pushes right through the tournament and keeps that nice edge. But that's just something you need to put in your schedule and not do too quick, because you might end up having to do it again when you're really, really busy. Clubhouse tree pruning, so all the trees around the clubhouse, we've got some really nice Japanese trees around the clubhouse that we have a company come in and make sure those are looking nice for the gallery to look at and whatnot. But that's another thing that we do leading up to the tournament. Flower beds, we do all this in-house, flowers. The ladies do a great job, but that's just another job task on the list that we put together. And yeah, leading up to that, I didn't put that in the presentation, but I just thought about it. 1 month before the tournament happens, we make a job list, and we put the dates that we want to have that job completed on a list, and we just check it off leading up to the tournament. And I think that might be something, if you don't already do that, that's something that you can start doing. And it helps you not forget about something, or it helps you not do something too fast or whatnot. But so flower beds are another thing that we do leading up. Rough mowing, we actually cut the rough the week of the tournament. We didn't do that in the past, but I always thought, you know, getting a nice fresh, and we don't want to cut too much off. We're just trying to cut the tips off. So if it's rained a lot and our last cut was 80 millimeters, I really want to go 80 millimeters again, but if we've got a lot of growth in the rough, then maybe I'll go out at 90 millimeters or 100. But I just want to cut the tips of that grass off so it doesn't make a mess, and it looks nice and clean, and we've got consistency throughout the entire golf course. And I only go inside the ropes. I don't worry about anything outside the ropes, because you're going to have so much traffic there that it's not going to matter once you cut it anyway. So we're always just cutting inside the ropes the week of the tournament with the rough. So does our course close leading up to the tournament? No, it doesn't. This is the weekend before the tournament. This is our tee sheets for Saturday, Sunday. We get 350 rounds the weekend before the tournament week starts. We do close in July and August every Monday, but for like 2 weeks before the tournament, or a week before, or even the weekend, no, because if you look at the money that's coming in through those rounds, you know, I can't argue with them too much. So we just have to work around the players. So we're working early in the mornings, maybe take a good break while the players are out there, then work in the afternoon to get the work that we need done. But no, our golf course does not close leading up to the tournament. Because it doesn't close, you have to protect the tees, right? So on our par 4s and par 5s, we'll move the tees to the very back here. This is our pro here getting ready. He made the cut last year for the first time. We were excited. But we'll move the tee markers in the back of the tee because we know all the sponsor signs are going to be in this area, and it's not going to be used anyway. So I think during your inspections, they're kind of going to give you an idea of where they're going to put the tee markers, and you look at that, and you can adjust. This is about 2 weeks out. We start doing this to protect them. So that's something else you need to think about. Now for the par threes, it kind of depends on which par three it is, but for our regular play, the champion tee will actually move it up to what we call the back tees. So actually no play whatsoever, even if the players want to play from the champion tees. On the par threes are played from that tee. The only people that can play from those tournament tees are players that come in to practice. And we'll set like a yellow stake in the back of the tee where we know that the sign boards are going to be, or we're not going to use for the tournament week. We'll set like a little stake there, and that's where those pros are hit from while they're practicing. We don't get so much practice from the pros, but we do. There's a big lag in between our tournament and the previous tournament. There's like a month. So the players are really getting excited, wanting to get back on the tournament schedule. So, you know, we do have a few of the pro players come out a little bit early to practice. So we do that for them so they can get some good practice in from where they'll be hitting during the tournament week. So I showed you a video with the cart that doesn't go in the fairway. We do carts in the fairways. I kind of like it because it keeps the fairways a little bit compacted and firm. It helps me firm them up a little bit. If you don't put the carts in the fairways, they can tend to get a little bit puffy on you or whatnot. But you can see all the cart traffic right here. Then if you do have some droughty weather and you're driving over zoysia grass, you can mark it up with the tires pretty good. So about 2 weeks out from the tournament, I cut off, caddies go nuts, but I turn off I put them on the cart path only leading up to the tournament 2 weeks out to try to reduce any of this or any tire marks that might occur from the cart traffic. All right, so now it's game time. So we have a morning meeting. The volunteers are starting to come in, and the first thing I like to do is introduce all the volunteers that come in for that week. You know, our staff has worked hard, but the volunteers are the people that help you get it across the finish line. So it's good to acknowledge them for being there. They don't have to be there. They're not getting paid to be there in most cases. They want to help you or they want to learn. So it's good to acknowledge those guys for their help. We go over all the assignments for that morning, and we really stress safety because it's not an everyday day. You got trucks going everywhere. You got gallery coming in. There's a lot of things that could go wrong if you're not careful about driving throughout the course. So we really stress safety driving from green to green or fairway to fairway or whatnot. And basically just focus on your work. And you know, there's lots of things that can go wrong if you're not focused on your work. So just really for everybody to stay focused. And if there's any other issues that might have came up the previous day that we had a meeting with the directors or something that we need to touch on, we'll go over that as well in our morning meeting. But just make sure everybody's on the same page, and it helps work go a lot smoother. So I make this schedule up a few weeks before the tournament. It never goes to plan. So I've got my mowing team here. 2 guys are going to mow these greens. These 2 guys are going to mow those greens. It kind of helps everybody. Japanese like to know what's going to happen, so they don't like spur of the moment changes. So I let them know beforehand what they're going to be doing. You got the roller team here, cup cutters, bunker raking, and whatnot. So I post this, and we go over it 3 or 4 weeks before, and just to let them get it in their head of what their job assignment is for that week. So during the tournament, our greens mowing, our height is normally about 2.6 millimeters, and we'll mow twice in the morning. And we have 6 teams with 12 people mowing. And it's just as easy as going in 2 different directions, and we change those directions every day. Zoysia grass. If you've mowed zoysia grass before, there's not a lot of dew on it, if there is dew on it. So it's really hard to see, and when you're mowing every day for so many days, 2 times a day, and then now you're mowing actually 3 times a day, it's really hard to see where you're going. So, and we don't have enough guys to go out there and have markers with their foot or whatever. So they have stakes that they take with them, and after they get to the end of the green, they'll move the stake over just to give them a good vision of where their line is. It's not perfect, but it helps. Actually, these guys aren't really doing anything but watching there, but that's one thing that we do. And this past year, our local distributor has modified this little foam marker for our mowers, which is pretty nice. So what this does, it's got a little button there on the handle, and it'll go across the green, and you can drop foam going across the green so you'll know where your line was if you can't see. And if you only need like 2 or 3 drops, you just press it, you drop it, and you keep going, and you press it again and drop it. Some of our guys only press it when they make their turn, so they'll know where their line is when they turn around. It's, you know, every guy's different, but it really helps out knowing where your line is. So if you have trouble seeing your lines when you're mowing, it's another idea that you might be able to get somebody to I don't think it's on the market yet, but maybe you can do one up yourself. Now we start so early that we're mowing in the dark in the morning, and obviously we got lights on our mowers here, so you can see everything that's in front of you, but you can't see what's behind you. So who knows what the actual mower's doing? You know, your mechanics aren't perfect, so they might have made a little mistake somewhere. So we do have guys, our mechanics, that go out there while it's dark, and they're going to look over the green to make sure the mower setting's okay. There's no issues with the quality of cut, and I think that's really important when it's dark outside, because the guy mowing really can't see what's actually happening behind him. So we've got 3 people rolling, and that's just, we do that every day. I didn't mention this, but we do start rolling a lot earlier now than we did before, and we don't make it like on a everyday basis, but if we have time, maybe 3 weeks before, and we got a couple guys that want to stick around, we'll go put them on a roller and just go roll the green. So, but during the tournament, we'll have 3 guys in the morning rolling. And then cup cutting. You know, obviously, Japan's a little different with the cup cutting. They like it a little bit deep, and after they've cut it, it looks really strange to me because I'm so used to a little bit more of a shallow cup. But a 500 yen coin is basically what they tell you, and that's about 2.65 centimeters in depth, and they're pretty strict about it. If you don't do it at that depth, you're going to be cutting the cup again. So our guys have pretty much got it down, and you always want a good straight pin when you're cutting as well. Green painting, we don't paint the greens, the event staff paints. It's a little bit of a different style of painting in the cups than you've probably seen. They don't use the little twist paint can in Japan. They have regular paint, and then they use some baby powder to make that paint stick to the side of the cup. It works, but it does cause a big mess in the bottom of the cup at the end of the week. But it's pretty interesting to watch anyway. So this is how they do it there. Then they got this little towel here where they'll dab that baby powder on there. It's pretty neat. Tournament tees, we walk the tournament tees during the week, 7 millimeters. Takes 2 people to do that in the morning. Dew removal, we don't have time. I would like to cut the fairways in the morning, but we don't have the staff to do it. So to remove dew, to remove any earthworm castings, maybe we'll have some mole cricket out there. We take a drag mat over all the fairways in the morning just to clean them up. Basically, that mat looks like this. I think they call it maybe a core buster, and it does a pretty decent job. Bunker raking, I used to be really big on hand raking the bunkers, but that, again, takes a lot of manpower. It looks great. But, we've had some issues where we had to put work elsewhere during the week, and we've gone to using the sand rakes machines, and our ladies do a wonderful job with it. There's no problems with it. So I've almost gone this direction because I can put the extra help in other areas of the golf course. So if we do use the bunker rake there, we might be able to get them all raked. We got 65 bunkers on our golf course. We can get them all raked with maybe 5 people. Got a couple people doing the edges, and then ladies come in and clean up the bottoms. Afternoon schedule, I make the afternoon schedule just like I do the morning schedule, just so the guys know what's going on. So the first thing in the afternoon, before we mow the greens, we make sure that if anything is wilted during that day, that it's getting some water. We don't really have time to go out there and start probing every green to find out the soil moisture. We do that, but we don't base our watering on that. I'd like to, but we just can't do it right now. We're working towards that. But anything that they see wilting, they're going to get out there in front of the greens mowers and hit it with some water. And they got to move fast, because if we don't, it's going to get dark and we can't mow. So we do that. This particular day, this guy was on number 9 green, and there's some girls there dancing, and I didn't see anything wilting, but this guy's just kind of hanging out, checking out the women dancing there, which was interesting. But last year was an interesting tournament. We had all you can drink, all you can eat for the gallery. I thought it was going to get a little bit out of hand. We also had these girls dancing Saturday after the event, but the men's tour is kind of losing interest, so they're trying to think of anything they can do to get interest. The people coming to the golf course to watch golf, but it was a fun tournament last year, and I'm sure they're going to carry it on from now on. So after we water, we're going out there. We got 7 guys that'll mow the greens in the afternoon. Again, no brushes, no anything, just a single mow. And in the afternoon, there's no perimeter cleanup mow for the greens. We just let it go, because the more you do it, the more times you might be able to gouge the collar or whatnot, so we don't mow the perimeters. I just tell them to pick up early and turn as quick as they can. We roll again in the afternoon, just 2 guys. First cuts at 30 millimeters, two people doing that, and our approach area, we use a triplex there, 10 millimeters. Our collar is mowed at 8 millimeters, 2 persons, with about an 80 centimeter width there. So actually it's a time and a half around the green. And we go straight from green, collar to rough. So I kind of wanted to do another tier right there, but the directors would rather have it just going straight to rough, because it makes things, I guess, a little bit more difficult for the pros. Now, the other tees, we don't just let them go. We'll cut the other tees every other day during the tournament, because if you let them grow too much, the color contrast from the tournament tees might change. So we'll cut those every other day, and we'll cut those with the triplex in the afternoon. We don't worry about walk mowing those or anything like that. Fairway mowing, this was just for a photo. This was a photo op only. We did this one year. We had 8 mowers mowing, but now we mow with 3 mowers on each 9 going in one direction. We stopped doing the alternate mowing during the week of the tournament, and so they'll mow from green to tee and then come back and do another lap with the mowers. And I think for most holes they can get it done with about three times down the fairway. And the caddies will come out after play and start filling divots, and they're not always perfect filling those divots, so sometimes you get like mounding with the divots, or they haven't really cleaned it with their foot very well. So we like for the caddies to get in front of us, and then we'll take the mowers behind the caddies, so we clean out those divots after they've filled them. Fluffing the rough. Now, we don't do this so much anymore because we cut the rough the week of the tournament. But if we do see some areas that are kind of laying over whatnot, we've modified these are little needle tines, I guess, and we cut them facing backwards to where we're moving. And this goes on the back of a bunker rake. This is what it looks like. So a lot of those heavily trafficked areas, we don't do the entire rough, but just we'll spot do it sometimes to get the rough standing back up again and penalize the players if they do go in those areas. Anything around the greens, we'll just do that by hand with rakes. So we'll have like 3 or 4 guys on each 9 in the afternoons go around, just kind of touch up around the greens. So if the players miss the greens, then they got a bad lie. Another thing that's interesting is playoff cup cutting. If you've ever been nervous about any job task on the golf course, I can tell you right now, cutting cups with about 4,000 or 5,000 people watching you, it can be tense. And we only got like 2 or 3 guys that want to do it, and I just let them do it. But it's pretty fun for the crew because they get on TV. The crowd's always talking about it. They talk about it on TV, and it's pretty cool if you do go into playoff and have to recut the cups. So we take a lot of data during the week, and Dr. Michael Woods has come every year. I've been there for 5 years, taking all kinds of data. I wasn't really big on data because I really didn't look into it too much, but once you start getting a lot of data accumulated over a couple of years, 3 years, you start seeing things that pop up to you that you can improve on. And so it's taking this data has played a key role in us improving the quality of the greens every year. So clipping volume, we take it every day throughout the year. This is about a month long worth of clipping data right here. You can see this is a 7-day moving average here. So at the end of July, we're up above close to 3 liters per 100 meters on our greens, and so reducing the N, frequency of cutting, and our PGR applications, we gradually get that down, and our goal is under 1 liter. We didn't know that beginning off in the first year, but we found that getting the clipping yield under 1 liter per 100 square meters has been pretty effective in increasing our green speeds. So this is kind of just for a visual effect. This is what happens leading up to the tournament with the clipping yield. So you look over 5 years. This is an average of the clipping yield through the tournament week, and you can see in 2013 we didn't have any idea of what we wanted to do. We didn't have any targets. We were just going to take data and go from there. So we were close to 3 liters starting the tournament week. We gradually went down. We had a lot of rain, and there's so many factors that come in to what affects the clipping yield, right? Bill touched on that. You got temperature, rainfall, cloudy weather, things like that will affect the growth rate. But what you can control is your applications to the greens and your mowing. So we concentrate heavily on that, and every year we've gradually started to get to where it's really consistent, because I don't want to be at under 1 liter here. I want to be under 1 liter when I start that week off. So you start doing everything earlier and earlier, and our goal right now is 1 liter before the tournament week starts. And you know, this past year, 2017, you can see here, it's a little bit more than the previous 2 years, but this was a really, really hot year. And I think right here we got a really heavy rainfall, so we got a little bit more growth right there at the end. But you know, we were close. We were at what we wanted to do. We did what we wanted to do, so we were pretty much happy with the way it's gone. But I think, as Bill touched on, it's really important to measure your clipping yield and know where you're at, and adjust the growth rate as you see needed. Stimping the greens, I got this from Ryder Cup at Hazeltine. Chris Trinidad had every green marked. He found a flat area on the green. If you don't do this, you're really not measuring the same spot every time. So we've marked with a little T, 12 feet apart and coming back in different directions. So we know every day we're stimping the same area, and so there's not any inconsistencies with our readings. So we've started that I think last year, and it's been neat. It's something you might want to try. So our morning speed 2013, all the tournament directors saying, Andrew, can you get it up to 10? Yeah, I think I can. It should, 10 feet's not much, but zoysia grass is a funny cultivar on the greens. So I don't know. I'm going to try, but not quite. We were just over 9 feet, and even the getting into the tournament, we were struggling to get up to 9. But we started working with different things, and we're gradually starting to increase our green speed. If you get zoysia grass over 10, close to 11, it actually feels a lot faster. And so 2015, we've got our clipping yields down to where we kind of want it, and we're starting to get up to 11 feet. And I think for our tournament, maybe 11 feet's a really good speed to have. We've talked about it, and I think with zoysia grass being, having so much vigor, and it's kind of got stiff leaf blades and whatnot. If you get too fast, you've ever rolled a ball across concrete or something, when it tails off, you can kind of see it wobbling. And I think with zoysia grass, if you get too fast with that, I think when the ball starts tailing at the very end of its roll, it might start wobbling a little bit. So I don't know, but we might never get there to find out. But 11 feet's been good for us. 2016, we're getting up to 11 there, and we're getting pretty consistent. And the main thing is you want consistency. You don't want the players coming in one day at being 10, the next day at being 11. So having it consistent as possible is really key. 2017, so we're getting pretty consistent with it. If I can get over 11, I might be happy, but we'll see. So you see the morning clipping volume and the speed of the greens. We've found that it's totally in relation. You get your clipping volume down, which is down here at the bottom. You get that down to about 1 per 100 square meters, and your speeds are going to go up. So it's something, I think it plays a key role in the quality role on your greens. Surface hardness and soil moisture, I think everybody knows that they go hand in hand. So what's interesting here is in 2013, 2014, we aerified. And that was about 8 weeks out from the tournament. 2015, I decided I wasn't going to aerify. Somebody told me not to. So I didn't aerify. 2016, I got scared. I don't know why, but I aerified again. 2017, we didn't aerify. And it just might be coincidence, I don't know, but the years that we aerified, I guess the difference in the firmness of the greens varied a little bit more during the week than the years that we didn't aerify. And I don't know if that has to do with the aeration or not, but it's something to look at in the future if that continues. We're not going to aerify this year because we have the Japan Amateur Championship, and then we have the KBC Augusta after that, so it'll be another year that we don't aerify. So we'll see how that continues throughout the year. But managing your growth rate, not getting so much organic matter buildup, not having to aerify, not having to do so much surface disruption might actually help you have more consistent surfaces as far as firmness goes in your greens. Okay, these are just things that might go wrong during your tournament. It happens. One thing you really want to be careful with is your perimeter cut here. You really want a nice clean edge on it, because if you get something like this, the players don't know if that's on the green or if that's a collar, and then especially when you start doing this, then the mowers don't know what the actual perimeter is, so that's why I tell them to focus on their work. You know, you don't want to look up and then go into the collar a little bit. You want to have a nice clean edge on your cleanup cut. You never know, you could drop the reels off in the rough. I just tell the guys if they're going from hole to hole, turn the reels off, because if your hand hits the button, it's going to drop and you're going to cut the rough. If something does happen like this, some things you can do is get some fresh grass clippings and just kind of sprinkle over it. It'll kind of hide it. Hopefully they don't do this close to the green. This just happened to be in front of the fairway, so it didn't really make a big difference in the tournament or play. But just, you know, you always want to tell your staff to focus on their work and try as hard as they can not to make mistakes, but everybody's human, so it happens. Another thing, just, you know, if you don't concentrate, you go off in the rough, the collar there. Another thing, just if it does, it happened, there's nothing you can do about it. It's hard to paint like scalp turf, so again, if the tournament directors will let you, you go out there and just sprinkle some fresh grass clippings on that. You have to do it every day because grass clippings will turn brown over a day, but just go out there and sprinkle some grass clippings over that and kind of hide it, I guess. Since we got our collar is 80 centimeters wide and we go directly into our rough, if we have new part-time guys, they're not aware of what they're doing, but you have to take them out there and show them. But if they don't turn quick enough or lift their mower high enough, we're starting to grow this rough up pretty high. So if you turn that mower over in the rough, you think you're lifting it up, but you're actually cutting some of that rough off. So you can see here where the mower came here and turned, and he didn't lift it up high enough, and he's cutting the rough. And he might not even notice that. So if you see that on your golf course, take the guys out there. You don't just tell them about it because they probably don't understand it. Take them out there and show them and say, you know, if you need to turn earlier or you got to lift the mower up a little bit higher or whatnot. But this is something that can happen if you got a quick if you go from collar to rough automatically without any kind of intermediate cut there. This is just a miscommunication, a guy that didn't mow around the putting green very often. This was supposed to be at like 40 millimeters or something, and he just took the triplex. This is a week before the tournament. He took a triplex over that, and it's not going to grow back. So we worked into the night. We went and resodded that, and that's just total miscommunication. But just make sure everybody's on the same page, well communicated, so you can kind of prevent anything like this happening. Now again, you don't never know how the week's going to go. If it goes nice, the weather's good, it's great. But I've been there for 5 years, and I can't remember a year when it's been perfect. So we'll have some heavy rain events, and that's when your volunteers really come in to play, to help you get out there and get that course ready for play to start going again. So things that you might want to have on hand, there's a bunker pump here. This is made by Toro. It's great. If your bunkers don't drain very well, you can get them quickly drained. If you've got these on site, there'll still be a little bit left over, but you can get that out by hand or whatever, and it really helps you get things moving pretty quick. Then you have to push up the bunkers or whatever. You know, that's done with your volunteer staff. Another thing is, if you have a heavy rain event, sometimes the play stops, and you can't get play going again until the next morning, and the tournament directors want you to go mow the greens again. Well, there's balls. There's not balls on the green, but there's markers all over the green probably. So you tell the staff, you'll find out which greens still have balls on them and whatnot, but you don't know where it's at. So you tell the staff there's 3 markers on this green. And so sometimes you find them, sometimes you don't. We've had, I think, twice where we've cut up markers that were on the greens, and that's just something else that might pop up if you do have a heavy rain event. 2015, Tuesday, the week of the tournament, we had a typhoon come through, and I was basically going to give up. After the typhoon went through, I went to look at the course, and it was a disaster. So we got after it. We got blowers going. I think we had about 80 guys from surrounding golf courses, and I felt sorry for them because their golf courses were in the same predicament, but they were gracious enough to come help us out to get the course cleaned up. So we got blowers going. We're cutting down trees. Trees are down everywhere. The Pro-Am is the next morning. They decided they were going to go with it, but they only made it 9 holes. But we were working throughout the Pro-Am. Usually we kind of let them have their Pro-Am. We don't bother them too much, but we're cutting trees down. It was a mess, but we had guys come in, and man, they cleaned it up really quick, made it look nice, and even some of the players that came on Wednesday afternoon to practice, they went through the golf course and was like, you know, you could hardly even tell a typhoon came through. So the guys worked hard. It really helps to have that staff because you never know when something's going to happen. So when you do have something like that, that's when I kind of started rethinking things, and you know, maybe we don't need to hand rake bunkers. You know, I'd like to fluff the rough around the greens, but I need to get out there. I got limbs down all in the tree areas, so I moved all of this labor off into the tree areas just because if a ball goes in there, you don't want it to land next to a limb or anything like that. So we were just concentrating on cleaning the course up as much as possible every day leading up to the final day of the tournament. Break time, you know, your staff's working. They would get there very early in the morning. They're working late at night, so you always want to have a good break time. If you go to a major tournament, you're going to have these nice 0-degree gravity chairs, TVs everywhere. It's nice. You might have a pool table. This is not our golf course, by the way. This is the Ryder Cup ping pong table. These big tournaments, they have coffee set up. They have catering come in. It's really nice. Pebble Beach was more relaxed. They dedicated 2 guys on their crew, and all they did was barbecue all day, and it was great. This is how we do it in Japan. You just find a place in the back of a truck or throw some cardboard down in the maintenance shop and take, this is the same guy, he just found a different place those 2 years to catch a nap before we went out to work in the afternoon. In Japan, we have some zero alcohol beers that are nice and refreshing after you've had your morning work. Then we have instant ramen, some instant snacks during the day. If you ever want to come help out at our tournament, you're more than welcome. Again, there's a direct flight to Fukuoka. We can manage your hotel arrangements and everything for you. So this is our tournament team. It's not overboard. We do our best to get as many people as possible, make it fun. We normally average anywhere from, I guess, 38 to 45 people during the week. It'll vary because we got people come in Thursday, Friday, some come in Saturday, Sunday. But it's a good crew. They work hard. We have fun. And before I finish here, I'd just like to leave a few key points with you. So the most important thing, I think, you want to be organized and be ready for anything. You never know what's going to come your way during the week of the tournament. So if you're organized, you can kind of be ready for something and get on top and be on top of it before it becomes an issue. Always make sure your staff and volunteers are instructed properly and well recognized. They're working hard, they're trying their best, and it's good to let them feel appreciated for their hard work. It can be overlooked, and I think it's very key to keeping motivation up when you have a tournament year in and year out. You don't want people dreading the tournament when it comes up. You want people to be excited, have a fun week, and so I think that's really important as well. Again, we've hit on this quite a few. Plant growth regulators and your mowing frequency. I can't stress that enough. Every year the tournament is better the week after, and it doesn't matter how much you work before the tournament, it's going to be better the week after. So I'd concentrate on that as much as possible if you can. Measure clippings, take data. You'll never know what can pop up if you don't do it. it doesn't matter about growth rate. I also, when I measure the clippings, so we have our greens mowers go out there, and they'll measure the clippings. They'll write down the mower that they used, so we got our mowers numbered, and the green that they got the clippings from. And some days you'll have like five liters this green, and then this green had 20 liters. And you're like, whoa, something's going on here. So I get the equipment manager to go in and check the mowers, and sure enough, there was something off on that mower. So not only are you checking the growth of the grass, but you can also check inconsistency with the mowers as well, because if something's that different, there's definitely something wrong there. And you don't know it, because this guy says I got a lot, this guy says I got a little bit, and okay, everybody's different. But measuring clippings, I advise, if you're not doing it, you should try it. I think the main thing is focus on playability, but be observant visually. So you want the golf course to look nice and be great for TV, but the main thing is the playability. But the more you do to the grass, you're going to affect the visual appearance of the grass. So just kind of have a good balance between those two, and just be observant of it visually. I wouldn't concentrate on too much, because then you're going to start affecting the playability. I think the playability comes first, then visually. And most important, have fun. It can be a stressful week. It can be very tiring, but you know, if you really prepare for it and be organized, it can be fun and something that your staff look forward to every year when you have to do it on a year in and year out basis. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew, again, for sharing us the very helpful information. Many things, many issues to concern when you have to set up some tournaments. So this time we have time to set up a moment on the stage for the next session, question and discussion. I have some things to announce.
So just give us a minute. We're setting up on stage for anybody that has questions for our morning and afternoon speaker. You know, at this time, you guys can ask questions. I would like to have everybody kind of move up a little bit if you guys have questions, because back there is a little bit further away. Okay, just give it one moment.
สำหรับแขกผู้มีเกียรติชาวไทยนะคะถ้าไม่สะดวกถามเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเขียนโน้ตขึ้นมาบนเวทีก็ได้นะคะเดี๋ยวจะอ่านคำถามให้นะคะ